This is obviously one of the major burning questions in multiple sclerosis, because we all know that we have good therapies actually for the early stage, for the relapsing stage of multiple sclerosis, which are very effective. But when the people have already entered the progressive phase, these therapies are not very beneficial. So only very few of them have a little bit of effect. So this is really the major need to be addressed in the near future here in multiple sclerosis research. Now, in contrast to what was thought maybe a few years ago, we have now very, very good evidence that both the relapsing as well as the progressive stage of the disease is directly driven by an inflammatory response. But the inflammatory response is different. In the early stages, new waves of inflammation enter the central nervous system from the circulation, and they give rise to fresh lesions which are responsible for the relapses. Now, in the progressive stage, this inflammation actually resides within the central nervous system. It becomes trapped within the central nervous system and then is very slowly and gradually activated and damages the brain in a very slow and gradual way. And that then leads to a diffuse damage of the entire brain, but also to a slow growth of the lesions in the cortex and in the white matter, which we call now the slowly expanding lesions. And it is now the real aim of many of the research purposes from academia and the pharmaceutical industry to develop drugs which target this inflammation within the central nervous system. And it's difficult because this inflammation is behind an intact or repaired blood-brain barrier, so it's difficult to get the drugs into the brain. And the second thing, they have actually to address that and then have to stop more or less the slow progression of lesion development and neurodegeneration. And there are now tools, MRI tools, and also serological biomarkers where you can monitor this progressive brain damage, and they will now be used as more or less markers for the effectiveness of such therapeutic approaches. And I think this is a fascinating development which we will see the results within the next few years.